holy crap. Anyway. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
girl.
Yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Oh, I'm taking my heels off and I'm turning my heater on. Like that's the episode we're recording today.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now, it's time to roll back and start the first case.
Welcome to the season finale of season 17. I am so glad that you are joining us today, and Chris and I both hope that you have learned a few things with us along the way about old ideas, old practices, and maybe even discovered new ways of thinking as well. Sometimes I think that really all it takes is understanding why for us to change what we do, or maybe just realizing that we were just taught the wrong thing and we need to know the right way of doing things. And I think it kind of takes a healthy dose of both to continually improve our practice, don't you think?
Yeah. And just realizing like we should be forever learners and not maybe let ego get in the way, right? It's okay. Like, well, I thought I was doing what I thought was right. And now that I know better, I can now do something different that is right. Exactly. And it's okay. Right?
Yeah. And
give grace.
It's okay to realize that there's a better way of doing things, and I'm going to change my practice and I'm going to improve. So in this final episode, we're actually going to address both of those things. And we're going to talk about two different topics. The first one has to do with a practice that a lot of you have probably seen on a regular basis in your operating rooms today. And because it happens so often, there's this acceptedness of it that gets perpetuated. And honestly, until I read about this practice in an AORN journal, I didn't even realize it was right. And while I'm not trying to leave you hanging, I'm going to hold off on what we're talking about for just a second. But that's the first thing. And then we're going to talk about another really old idea that was prevalent in the OR back in the day that has left me cackling since I heard about it. But it also just goes to show you how important it is that we change with the times, that we stay up to date on best practices, and that we always make sure our practice is influenced by that current research. And like you said, that we don't let our egos get in the way when it's time to change. So, Chris, back to number one. As our resident surgical tech expert, we are going to talk about using sterile blue towels to adjust your loupes or to adjust your eye protection or to even rub your nose while you're scrubbed in. I have seen this happen time and time again since I first started in the operating room. And that's not okay, is it?
Dude, no. Like,
well, that was easy, but let's talk about why.
Okay, so, there is always a little bit of kindergarten in the way that I teach, right?
I like kindergarten. It helps me learn.
Yes, absolutely. Our sterile boundaries, right? So we are most sterile from our fingertips circumferentially to 2 inches above our elbow. Then it goes all the way medially from our arms to our chest, from our axilla to our umbilicus, and only anterior, not posterior, right? If I can't see it, it's not sterile. All right. In Chris's world, the way that I explain it in East Tennessee, in Texas, right? You are only sterile if you can see it from your nips to your hips. Right?
But that's true. It's this rectangle or square, depending on how you're built.
Yes.
Just right there in the midsection. That's it.
Yeah. Nips to hips, children. Your collar, and borders are not sterile. Borders where your scrub top could touch, right? God forbid you don't listen to me and you wore jewelry in the operating room because you're not my student and you know I'm stalking, right? Or you have a scrub cap because you know you didn't wash that thing before you put it on, or your little Grey's Anatomy tendrils are coming out, or all the things that you all have heard me over these past seasons gripe about. Like, none of that is sterile. Our skin, our normal flora, the epithelial cell, like, none of that is sterile, right? Nips to hips. So no, your hands, although yes, there are moments we're going to extend higher, right, to move the operating room light, which has a sterile light handle cover, right? But nips to hips, that's their sterile area. So no, should you be touching anything about that area? No.
Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the thought process with it, though. So surgeon is scrubbed in. They need to adjust their loupes. Obviously, they can't touch the loupes with their gloves because their gloves are sterile. So what do? They grab a blue towel. They take that blue towel over their hands, slap it onto their face, adjust their loupes a little bit, and then throw the towel on the floor. Now, there's a yes, no, should not be doing it. But understanding why. First, we've already established, okay, well, this is not within our sterile nips to hips area. Okay, so we should not be reaching up, touching our face, even with a blue towel. But why does the blue towel not make it okay? And I think that's where people don't understand. I've used a blue towel. I've covered my hands. Why is it not okay? How else am I supposed to scratch my nose or adjust my eyeglasses?
Because it's not impervious. It's a woven cloth item. Like, just hold a blue towel up to the light, guys. If you can see through it, so can microbes. So can skin cells. Right?
They're very aggressive.
Yeah. Right. They don't care. And so that's why. Oh, okay, well, I folded it. Oh, congratulations.
We can still see light through it.
Yeah, I can still see light. But that's why. And I get it. Like, I was a trauma scrub. Like, I know what gray area is, right? If you're circling the drain, I don't really care. We'll give you Ancef. Like, it doesn't matter if your heart's not beating. Yeah. So I understand. Like,
you're not getting any better. Like, we're going to do things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it, right?
Yeah.
If you can't see it, you can't operate on it. So there are moments, okay? But here's my deal is that, like, number one, is your nose itching? Okay, get over it. Let's deep breathe. Let's do some yoga. Like, focus on your patient. Move on. Are you fixing a loop? Like, yes. Okay. First of all, did you correctly put the loop on prior to scrubbing in? Right? Because that's what we should do. We should put our headset on, our lamps, our loupes, whatever. You should put that on prior to doing your surgical hand scrub and being gowned and gloved. But are there moments where you need to adjust it? Yes. Hey, guess what? You can't do a surgery without a circulator and an anesthesia provider that are non-sterile. So, like, why not ask them politely to walk over and adjust your loop for you with their non-sterile hands? Hopefully, please God, have nitrile gloves on. And then guess what? You've protected yourself. Or in the case where that, okay, then again, if that can't happen and you must, because God knows there is not an A, B, C, or D option. And the only thing that you can do, in fact, there's not even like one of those disposable, non-pervious drapes that we square off with that we hate using, that that an amazing surgical technologist wouldn't have thrown away. They would have put on their non-working end. Could you have used that? Okay, but if not, okay, so we've negated all of that. And the only thing you could possibly use is a blue towel. Then, fine, adjust the thing so that you can operate on your patient effectively. But hopefully tell me that you were double gloved. And if you were double gloved, because you've listened to that episode where I got on that soapbox, because the solution to pollution is dilution, then the best thing that you should do is change your top gloves after you've done that, because those top gloves are contaminated.
Absolutely.
And if you have an amazing surgical technologist, the second that they protested that you were asking for the stupid blue towel in the first place, but when you finally got what you wanted, they were already asking for a second top pair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is, you've gone through all of the reasons why that it's not okay. And like I said, this is one of those instances where I just saw it happen all the time. And I was not formally trained to scrub. And honestly, when you talk about it, the light bulbs come on and I'm like, oh yeah, duh, this makes perfect sense. But if it's something you see happen all the time and you see your surgeons doing it, I see surgical techs doing it too, Chris. Not even going to lie.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
you're, set your hair on fire by telling you that, but I see it happen.
And it absolutely happens.
And it's like, okay, off the cuff, no pun intended, off the cuff, you're like, oh, okay, well, they're using a towel so they don't contaminate themselves because they can't just touch it directly. But then, like you said, well, hello, blue towels are not impervious. They're not, like the AORN article said, they're not resistant to strike through by liquid or microorganisms. So what if you had some splash on your face or something from the case and you've got that liquid on your face, then you touch your face, that liquid is a perfect medium to transport microorganisms through that towel onto your gloves. And here you are contaminated. And just like you said, the AORN article also said that you should change your gloves after doing that if it is something that you do. But do you want to hear something else really just mind-blowing?
I don't know.
Okay.
You already got me all riled up.
All right. So I am reading from the August 2025 issue of the AORN Journal, and this was found in the clinical issues section. So look on page 116 of that journal if you happen to have it.
Uh-huh.
But in answering the question about using sterile towels to adjust surgical loupes, they provided some statistics. I love statistics.
Oh God.
Okay. It says,
I hate math.
In a non-experimental study, researchers investigated the contamination rate of 21 surgeons' personal surgical loupes and found that 90% were contaminated with bacteria and 48% were contaminated with fungi. The researchers also sampled 5 surgical loop storage cases and identified bacterial contamination on 40% of the cases and fungal contamination on 100% of the cases. And so they recommend regularly cleaning surgical loupes and airing out storage cases to reduce the risk of surgical field contamination and surgical site infections. Those things are dirty. And so, Chris, I know y'all can't see her, but she's collapsed on the floor at this point. But so obviously we're just looking at loupes here. But loupes are dirty.
That's disgusting. Yeah. Disgusting, in the words of my daughter.
It's gross.
And they're on your surgeon's face.
Yeah.
Is hovering over the surgical field.
Yeah, who's then using a blue towel to adjust
Who's then
them,
using a blue towel and then touching it. And then
yeah. So.
And it's fungus.
Yeah, fungus.
Okay, so screw ANSEF.
Yeah,
that's not even going to do anything for you.
Not if we're dealing with fungus. So we have both bacterial contamination and fungus. Yeah, but if we're talking about fungi, that's a whole other treatment regimen to deal with
but just think about where they're leaving those loop cases. Half the time they leave them in the substerile.
I find
because they have their favorite OR, or they'll just leave them on the nurse's station and they're in the OR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or here's my favorite thing. They'll just leave them, they've got their little, I don't even know what you call it, ear holders, and they'll leave them around their scrub top, and they'll go see patients on the floor. They'll go see patients in PACU. They'll go sign consents. They'll go do all of that. Did they ever change their scrubs? Did they ever move the loupes? No. Then they'll go back into an office. I mean, I could spiral.
Well, it's almost okay, so this is a big jump, but you think about those loupes being worn around the neck after one case, in a case, out of the case, go see a patient, maybe go do some rounds, go see another patient, loupes go back on. Do you remember the stories we were told when they were studying infection prevention and we were talking about childbed fever and the surgeons or the doctors going from one childbirth to another, never changing their scrubs, the blood from one being on the other, and it was leading to the deaths of these mothers in the hospitals? Okay, obviously that's a big jump. But you can see the same practice. Something we're wearing in one case, we're not decontaminating before we take it into another case. We wander around the hospital, leave it around. And then when we sample those loupes, they're dirty. Okay, but we could also say the same thing about cell phones. I mean, if we really talked about sampling cell phones, because that's a whole other podcast for a whole other day. But you think about how dirty those are, and they are going with us from one case to one patient to another. And how often are our cell phones getting cleaned?
iWatches.
Oh, yeah.
Apple Watches. Uh-huh. Everything. I mean, if we wanted to spiral,
oh, yeah,
we could totally spiral. Mm-hmm. it makes me never want to leave. Like,
I want to live in a bubble.
either that or you just drink enough red wine and hope that your antioxidant levels are so good that it doesn't matter.
I'll just stay toxic to everything, right?
But yeah, but here's the deal is like, okay, so now once your eyes are open, and that's what education is,
Exactly.
that's what, light bulb moments are so amazing, because it's like, I can't control everything, right? If I did, I'd go insane. And I mean, we already realized that I'm right there on the edge. So, which is both a blessing and a curse. But once you have that recognition, that light bulb moment, and that's, I guess, probably what a lot of this season is that once you're like, oh crap, I didn't realize. Okay, now we do. So here's one habit, one tradition, one thing I used to do that I can now control and do something different.
Exactly.
And it's those little micro details, those little steps that if we all make those little changes, it's like that butterfly effect, right? It's going to make a big difference. And we just keep trying to learn and keep trying to do these things
exactly
better.
Yeah. And that is the whole point. That was the point of, or that was the motivation behind this season, is to really to tackle some different thoughts, some different ideas. Some of them were very obvious myths and very big things. Others are just smaller practices and things that we just like this, that just get passed on and just get carried on, and we don't really think about it. And then when we start to think about it, we're like, maybe that's not nice. Maybe that's not good.
Linda.
Hold on. So, and like you said, this is where the learning and the changing happens. I can't control everybody, but I can control me. I now know what the right thing is to do. Therefore, I will now do the better thing, and I won't continue in an old practice. And speaking of old practices, as we shift gears, look, as they say, my flabbers were gasted a couple of weeks ago. I was on the Circulating Life, which is a Facebook page that I run.
It's so good. Yeah.
In the comment section, I got lost in the bunny trail of a comment section, and some older nurses were talking about a practice. Look, I'm going to laugh, try to hold in my laugh so hard, I'm going to start crying. But anyway, the older nurses got to talking about a practice from back in the day that guided their uniforms, and it was called perineal fallout. Have you ever heard of perineal fallout in relation to the uniforms that we wore or that we wear in the operating room?
See, not in relation to the uniforms. Like, I was like, I just, there's so many things.
I know, right?
Like,
yeah.
So many things.
So obviously perineal, we're talking about the perineum. Fallout, we're talking about things falling off of it. So the biggest, the most basic explanation here, right? Okay.
Yeah, the first thing I think about is an anterior prolapse. That's the first thing.
Okay.
So, immediately I'm thinking like somebody sneezed too hard, somebody laughed.
Right,
like,
and something actually fell. No, they were actually afraid of skin cells falling off of the perineal area and causing contamination or causing increased risk, potentially infectious. So I found one website that was an old blog post where someone interviewed an old OR nurse about it. And she was like, hey, the skin is composed of layers, and the outer layer is continually being sloughed off into the atmosphere. And she referred to it as a potentially infectious fog that spreads like radiation, which is hilarious if you ask me. But anyway, she said, it's especially prevalent where skin rubs together in areas, as she said, like hairy masculine thighs or other skin folds. So you think about this, the fear was a lot of times the nurses were wearing dresses. Okay. What were they wearing under their dresses? Were they wearing anything under their dresses?
I know. That's my first question is like, are you wearing underwear?
And, it's not really a good idea in order for somebody to like say, hey, raise your skirt. Let me see if you have on panties today. Like, they can't do that, right? So,
dude, okay. Do you, I just, as an educator, and if there are any other educators listening to this podcast, they'll understand there are things in my handbook about undergarments and bras because somebody's broken a rule.
Exactly.
That's why there is a
the
rule.
Rule breakers are the reasons we have these rules. Okay, so listen. So that's just it. So you couldn't go around policing whether or not one of your nurses had on underwear.
I'm immediately thinking of the checkpoints because, we're both military.
Yeah.
And when you go on a military base, they have those mirrors that look under your cards. Can you imagine being the HR person that has to have the mirror, like walking around?
Oh, that's just a violation waiting to happen.
Oh, okay. I know. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So that was, you can't control that. And so then obviously, because there was this idea that you could shed skin cells from the perineal area, that you could basically, spread crotch crickets to the department and possibly contaminate the bed, maybe pass contamination to the table, to the patient, get it on the floor, and then it be kicked around like, I don't know. Anyway,
that's
so
mind-blowing.
Some places, women had to wear shorts underneath their dresses. Then that's also where the whole enforcing wearing pantyhose, because you could see if somebody had on pantyhose. And if they had on pantyhose, then obviously their perineal area was contained within the pantyhose. But it gets better.
It's permeable.
Yes, but pantyhose. It did not stop at just women, though, which I appreciate, because a lot of times I feel like things are very directed at women and men get off the hook, right? Anyway, but so women were required to wear undergarments, of course, under their skirts, and that led to a lot of push for them to have to wear pantyhose with those skirts. But surgeons were also, and men in the operating room were also required to have what they called ankle constrictions, okay? Or something that would hold the ankle part of their pants closed. So anything rolling around inside their pants stayed inside their pants. And that could be applied to all sorts of things.
I feel like that's wishful thinking.
Right?
On the meal.
But
on the,
so the shirt had to be tucked into the scrub pants. The pants obviously had to stay tied. And then the ankles of the pants, either they were like a jogger style like we had today, but if they didn't have that, they had rubber bands. And you're supposed to put rubber bands on the ankles of the pants to hold them closed so that you didn't shed any skin cells out of the bottoms of your pants into the operating room.
Oh,
right.
My God.
But
but what about arms?
Well, because that's where the idea of surgical jackets and other things to cover, because that was perpetuated for a while too, that, you had to keep your arms covered too for the same shedding of skin cells.
Yeah.
I did ask another nurse, actually somebody who we've interviewed on the podcast before. His name is Andrew. And I asked him about his experience with this. He is a nurse who was trained in South Africa. And then he has since come to the United States, and he is out in California. But his answer, because I asked him, I'm like, okay.
So
you've got to tell me about perineal fallout, and were you taught this? Like, was it like a thing when you started in the OR? And he's like, oh yeah, back in the day, most theater RNs wore surgical dresses, and because the floors of the surgical suite were considered ultra clean, all RNs were required to wear, as he put it, unladdered pantyhose to prevent perineal fallout. The guys had to wear scrub suits with the shirt tucked in and the shoe covers covering the bottom ends of the scrub trousers to contain the similar fallout of the skin cells. He also said that in South Africa, they are still very, very strict about requiring overshoe covers if you cross the red if you cross the red line, and scrubs are absolutely not to be worn outside the red line at all.
Which I feel like they do a better job there than we do.
I totally agree with
here.
That.
Yeah.
But then I asked him, I'm like, okay, so what about research? Like, was there any research to this idea and this fear of perineal fallout, or was it just something that was perpetuated? And he goes, there was no research that he was aware of. He said it was just an assumption that skin cells and anything else could fall out of your scrub pants or fall out of your scrub dress. And so it was this thought of skin cell shedding that perpetuated the practice of that. And also, the practice of wearing warm-up jackets with sleeves when you were prepping the surgical site. And all of it was with good intention, right? It was all to prevent skin cells shedding and possibly causing contamination, possibly causing an infection on the patient. And so as I sit here and giggle at this idea of perineal fallout, an idea that was perpetuated, enforced, and really preached within the operating room. Yes, it's funny, but I actually think it proves the point of this season very well.
Skin cells shed. That's why we do a surgical hand scrub prior to like gowning and gloving. Like, so it makes sense. It's just that, but also I'm thinking of sterile boundaries and like the floor is not like, it's all like, I get it. Yeah. But like, also I'm trying to like our sterile boundaries, and at no point the only time I have ever climbed on top of a patient and would have ever been concerned about perineal skin cells is because I was doing compressions because they were coating.
Exactly.
And at that point, my perineum could have been all over the place and they would not care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I get that. And actually,
that's why like reducing flora and like all it, like, so there is that backing, but like you were concerned about that area of a person's body and like, yeah. It's
funny. And we giggle. And actually, I forgot to mention another nurse actually said that they had to put rubber bands around the bottoms of their underwear, like sealing your underwear with rubber bands. And I'm like, that seems like it would be very constricting and would really cut off blood flow if I had a rubber band at the top of my thigh.
And also I'd be like, come here, boss, check me.
Prove it.
Dare ya.
Yeah, so I don't know about that one. But I can't argue with it either. It's not like I could prove it. But it's like, wow.
Oh,
but still,
my God.
the idea of these rubber bands. And that other nurse that was interviewed on that website, by the way, if you Google perineal fallout in the operating room, you find a blog interview from a blog called oldfoolrn.blogspot.com. And this is back from 2016. And he interviewed like an OG nurse. Her name's Alice. She seems intense. And she's also, you can tell by her answer, she's incredibly funny about everything too.
Yeah.
But, so
can you imagine what she's lived through?
Oh my gosh,
like,
no.
I'd love to have
listen
her on.
to her response and about the rubber bands. And now the person interviewing her had asked what could be done to prevent the dreaded perineal fallout. And she's like, like everything else in nursing, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I think that's kind of what drove this idea and this stuff anyway. But she said that men always had to have perineal fallout contained by ankle constrictions. And she said, I'm from the old school, and back in the day, we had scrub pants with elastic ankles, and this worked like a charm. But the best substitute for elastic cuffs was rubber bands. And she's like, so next time you unwrap your copy of the Chicago Tribune, make sure to save that rubber band and bring it to work. Okay.
Because that was clean.
That was clean. Anyway,
that was a cleaner bit. I love it.
All of that to say, this is funny. And it's interesting to go back and look. But it was an idea that was based in good intention. It was an idea that was based in fear of causing an infection. So the intention was obviously very good. We don't want to harm our patient. We want to protect them. We don't want to risk any potential exposure. And thinking too, obviously, we've come such a long way from when we had surgeries in open theaters where everybody, God and their mother, were in there watching, exposing the patient to all sorts of exposure and germs, to now we're afraid of any potential contamination. We don't want to cause any harm or cause any problem. Sure, I understand the root of the idea. And then it gets perpetuated. You got Alice, the old school nurse, and you got other people who were intense and you were afraid of, and you're the new person in the OR. And they said, put rubber bands around my ankles, and so be it. I'm going to put rubber bands around my ankles because they told me to. And at some point, somebody had to say, okay, wait, where's the research? Where's the proof that this is effective? How do we actually know that this is going to help? Is it necessary? And people, infection parentenists, nurse researchers, asking those questions, looking at it going, well, maybe instead of that, how about we just none of us wear dresses in the operating room for one? And that practice actually moved out of practice, in time. And then also looking at how we control the environment with our scrubs and with our surgical attire and all of these other things. And it's a more well-rounded researched approach than being afraid of what might fall out of somebody's underwear out of their pants leg over the course of the day. So anyway,
I love it.
But you can see the connection. You can follow the trail. The idea that was perpetuated that wasn't based in research, but had an ounce of good in it. And so it was carried on until research best practice moved forward and said, oh, let's do it better. And then we can jump on the bandwagon and change because now we have the research, we have the knowledge to do something better. And I think that that's really just a good way to wrap up this season because no, we didn't talk about every potential issue. We didn't talk about everything that we don't do that's right, but we know where to find the research and we know what to look for and we can use that to influence our practice. And I think that's a good place to start.
I do too. And it goes to the level of commitment that people who choose to be in these positions, like whether you're a nurse or you're a surgical technologist or any of the other fields that it takes to care for patients who are ill, like the things that you will do, right? Whether it is to put a rubber band around your waist or to wear whatever, to put on 2, 3, 4 pairs of gloves, whatever I have to do to make sure that I am as carefully and safely and effectively taking care of that person who needs my help, I'm going to do it. And that's admirable. And I hope that people understand that, that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
In healthcare. So I love it. And it's timeless. You can go back and those women would have worn whatever you told them to wear because they just wanted to help. And that you still see that to this day, and you're gonna see it when you and I are long gone.
Absolutely.
And so that's that warms my heart.
But with all of that in mind, it's a good reminder to encourage you to be a lifelong learner. Practices are going to change. We're not always going to be putting rubber bands around the ankles of our pants, but we also should not be adjusting our loops with blue towels either. New research will come out that changes what we do, and keeping up with those changes with new ideas, with new practices, will in turn keep us up to date and help us avoid falling into the traps of the old ways, the way we've always done it, and continuing with old, outdated practices. So that is going to do it for this episode and for this season. Thank you for coming along with us on this journey into some old ideas and myths and things that we just believe that were wrong in the operating room. And stay tuned for next season. We are going to be going a completely different route, and we're going to be looking at all of the people in our neighborhood to have a Sesame Street kind of theme, but all of the people that the OR interacts with, and how can we build those relationships, and how can we have good teamwork between their department and ours as we work together to provide great patient care. So on behalf of Chris, myself, and our whole team, thanks for listening to this season of First Case.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of First Case. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to First Case on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for First Case in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. We look forward to hearing from you.